Hello, and welcome to the Weird Waves podcast. My name is Taylor, and this is episode 46. On this week's episode, we are talking to Icah Wilmot, and you might recognize that last name because we actually interviewed his wife in episode 12. So this is an awesome episode. We talked to Icah. We hear all about Jamaican surfing, how it started. We hear about this really interesting program that they have where they kind of trade up surfboards because they don't have surfboard shapers where they're at. And we just hear about the quality of surfing that's happening in Jamaica. It's just really incredible. There's roughly 100 people that surf in the country, and 4 of them are professional surfers. That's a really high odds, so it's really interesting to hear that perspective. I really hope that you guys enjoy this episode. I know that you're going to love it. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Every time I post... Yeah, every time I post something about like, oh, who should I interview? Your wife's like, Icah.
Icah, yeah.
Your hair's so blonde.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been surfing a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets that way sometimes. So,
yeah.
Your hair's so red.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a hairdresser, so I always notice people's hair first. So that's why I'm like, oh yeah, it's super light.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes it gets even more blonde.
Yeah.
And then it gets so blonde that it breaks.
Yeah.
And the ends break off, and it never really gets much longer than it is right now, just like shoulder length. So, yeah.
Yeah, the salt water helps to bleach the hair with the sun. It's kind of like a natural thing. Why all the surfers have this little like surfer's halo around their face.
Yep.
That's cool. So how long have you been surfing?
I've been surfing since before I can remember. I probably started when I was probably about 5 or 6. Uh-huh. But my dad always had surfboards in the yard. So when we were growing up, we'd always just grab a couple and go out and just, mess around on them until when probably I was about 9 was when me and my brothers really got serious and like really started to like push each other and try to get better and not just like ride the boards up onto the beach, Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. So it started when I was probably about 5 or 6 or something like that. I don't remember.
Is it something that kind of came naturally to you? You just picked it up quickly, or?
I don't really remember because I don't have much memories of my super young youth. Mm-hmm. I had a car accident when I was about 10, so I lost most of my memories from earlier and around that time. I can't remember much other than what people tell me. But I know that we started surfing pretty young, and it was about when I was about 9 or 10 that we really got super into it. Because my dad, we'd always just take out all my dad's boards that he had, because he had a good collection. We just keep taking boards out and then like riding them up onto the beach and wrecking them. And then when we were about 10 or so, he gave each of us a board, me and my 2 brothers, and he gave us a board and he's like, this is the last board you're going to get. So take care of it. And then that's when we actually started like turning and going like down the line across right in the face of the wave instead of just going straight to the beach and not crashing into each other and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was it.
And you're calling us from Jamaica. So what is the surf culture like where you're at in Jamaica?
Surf culture here is pretty chilled. It's not that many surfers. It's like in Kingston where I live on this side, there's probably about maybe like 40 surfers totally. I mean, you have more than that would, but like people that surf on a regular basis, maybe like 20 people surf on a regular basis, and then another like 20 or 30 more that come out on like public holidays. And then the next major center of surfing is on the north coast, is Boston Bay, and that side has a bunch of kids that are into it. So that side has another like 40, 50, maybe 60 people. So maybe about 100 people in all surfing in Jamaica.
And surfing like professionally or even just hobby wise?
No, just happy wise,
Yeah.
like just for surfing. Professionally, I was the first Jamaican to pursue a career in surfing. And then now my younger brother Iva and his best friend Shama and another one of their good friends, Garen. They're like three that are like pushing into professional leagues right now too. So that makes four of us from Jamaica professionally surfing, and everybody else is just casual. I mean, the level of surfing here is pretty high
Mm-hmm.
because we get really good waves all the time. So everyone gets a lot of good practice in good quality waves. Everyone gets really good, but only four of us have really like pushed and like ventured off into the professional realms.
Yeah, but out of 100 surfers, that's a pretty good odds, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know. And the thing is, out of the 100 surfers, there's probably like 50 or 60 that are pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not like a whole bunch of people who are just beginning and then three good guys. It's like everyone's pushing each other really well. So it's yeah, it's pretty
How,
good culture down
that's,
here.
yeah. That's really interesting because if you actually think about it in like in terms of other countries and the percentage of surfers that they have versus how many are professional, you guys have a pretty good percentage of your surfers
Yeah,
that are professionally good, not just, you know,
yeah,
hobby
not
good.
just yeah. And the thing with Jamaica too is that it's pretty chilled. There's a lot of surf spots and a lot of variety, and
Hmm.
people only surf a few spots, so it's not very difficult to get waves by yourself. Like
That's awesome.
most of the time on a regular basis, like on like if it's really good, you go surfing and there's probably like 10 people out, and then everyone surfs the same spot. So like if you want to surf by yourself, you just walk down the beach and you get a wave for yourself basically. But the good thing with surfing in Jamaica also is that because Jamaica has a really like chilled, like as they say, one love vibe, you know, it's really chilled here, and the vibe in the water is always relaxed and chilled. So, you know, when you go out there, it's not like people hassling people or anything. You know, just everyone's cool, like just sharing waves and having fun, which makes it good. You know, so it's not like
Having,
you go to
yeah.
some countries I've been to, like you get in the water and like the vibe is just so tense, like you're afraid to even paddle for a wave that someone looks like they're gonna miss it and you should go, but like you don't want to go because they might think you're trying to block them or something, you know. So it's just, but here it's really chilled, so it's really nice.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask you is how that has affected you surfing, you know, internationally.
Um, Internationally, I mean, when I go to certain places, I kind of feed off. You have to feed off the vibe of the place, basically, because like you know, you go to like California or somewhere where there's like thousands of people surfing, and you go to the beach and it's super crowded. If you just paddle out there and just sit waiting for a wave or for someone to give you a wave, you're not going to get any waves. You know,
Hmm.
so what I usually do in places like that, um, the last time this really happened to me was in I went to Puerto Rico about a year ago, um, and I went out to this spot and it was like 100 bodyboarders and longboarders and paddleboarders and it was so crowded, and I ended up sitting like way on the inside, you know, and I catch like the smallest waves that nobody wants, you know. And I just rode a bunch of those, and then after a while, like everyone kind of sees you surfing and realize like, okay, this guy can surf. Okay, let's. Then I paddle a little further out, and then I catch one of the mid-sized ones, and I can surf. And then ones that no one wants, I pick them off. And then by the end of the session, I was on the peak, and like the locals were like sending me on waves. You know, they're like, yeah, go for this one, Jamaica. You know? So yeah. So I mean, once you show your respect, no matter where you are in the world, you show your respect in the water, and you know, don't try not to like nudge in on people's grounds, you know, because you know you never know. You might be there and you're like, oh, I'm just one guy surfing, but you never know. Like it could have been yesterday were a million kooks out there dropping in on everybody, and everyone
Yeah.
was pissed. And then today you're the only new guy, but you know, so you have to really, I'll just take that into consideration anywhere you go and show respect to all the locals. And yeah, once you have that vibe, it's you know, it's usually pretty chilled. Can say I've had many bad surfing experiences.
Well, that's good. And I think also too it's how you um react to the weirdness, you know? Like if you read that the vibe is off and then you get that aggression, then it kind of feeds into the rest of the
Yeah,
aggression. At least that's been my
exactly.
experience,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, just kill them with kindness,
Yeah.
Even if someone's like dropping in on you, just smile and be like, yeah, cool, like, yeah, all right, you know,
Yeah.
because yeah, I get that. I mean, people don't drop in on me too often, like when I go surfing, because I can surf pretty okay, you know. So like once I get out there and I start riding a few waves, like everyone realizes like, okay, this guy can surf, like whatever, you know. But if you're like a beginner and you go to some spots and you're just like trying to get used to it or trying to get control in your board riding the wave and people realize you're not really that good, they have like no second thoughts about dropping in on you. And that's kind of sucks because then how are you supposed to progress if you don't actually ride good waves, you know? But then everyone expects you to be better if you're going to be surfing in a crowd, but then
Yeah.
you can't get better because you're not getting any waves. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty rough. But I mean, luckily we don't have that problem down here. It's
Yeah.
tons of waves and not that many people surfing. So yeah.
Are you born and raised in Jamaica?
Yeah. Born right here, 8 Miles Bull Bay. Learned to surf right behind our house because my grandparents moved here in like the 50s, I think, and bought the land and built a house. And my dad was born here and grew up here. And he learned to surf from a Jamaican guy who I think he went to college or something in like California. And he'd come back to Jamaica every summer and camp out on the beach right out here. And one day my dad saw him camping on the beach and he was like, "Hey, sir." My dad was probably about 10 and he was like, "Hey, sir, could I borrow your surfboard and try it?" And then that's how my dad started surfing and he kind of mentored my dad. And then, you know, that's how my dad got into it. My dad ended up going to Puerto Rico a bunch of times, surfing over there, and he was really good. And then when his music career took off, he not surf so much, so he had all these boards, and we were just here. So like, when he comes home from touring, we'd be all like gung ho, like we go surf, and then he leaves, and we're like, okay, let's just surf, and then there's nothing else to do, We live on the beach, that's what we do, and yeah, so that's how we got into it, and yeah.
That's awesome. So the house that you were raised in, is it different from the surf camp or is it on the same property?
It's on the same property.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few houses on the property. The property is kind of big. There's a house closest to the beach is where my grandparents used to live when they were alive. But my parents live down that side now. I mean, last year we had a fire that burnt that house down. So we're
Oh,
rebuilding it right now. It's coming along pretty good, getting close to being finished. Um, Thanks to, I mean, my cousin put on a GoFundMe for raising to rebuild the house, and that went pretty good. And yeah, that gave a lot of support to like, you know, putting the roof on. Like, we basically had to rebuild the whole house because when it burnt, everything burnt because it was a 2 story, but it was like wood floors.
mm,
So the roof was wood, the floors were wood. So basically, the fire started upstairs, burnt through, fell through to downstairs, burnt everything. So yeah, we basically had to like rebuild the whole house, and it's coming along. Then my sister lives in a little flat beside that house. Then the surf camp is in the center of the yard, and then there's a top house which I grew up in. Me and my brothers and my sisters, our family grew up there. But right now, my second eldest brother and my youngest brother live in that house, and me and my wife built a house in the front of the property. And the surf camp is right in the middle, in between the four houses. So yeah,
that's awesome. You have a compound.
yeah, basically, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, and everyone knows it's built for surfing. Fun little waves out the bat that we learned on, that we teach people on, and then just like maybe a couple 100 meters down the beach, you walk down the beach and there's a fun wave called Copa. That's a fun little like rock cobblestone break that really gets good. And there's a couple other ways you can walk to like another 100, 200 meters around the beach the other direction and get up like about 3 or 4 more waves that are really good. So yeah, good waves, good vibes.
That's all you need, really.
Yeah.
How did you Or when did the surf camp start?
It's hard to say because when my dad started touring with his music, wherever he would go, he'd like carry pictures and videos of Jamaica's surfing just to show people that hey,
Ah,
and then he'd meet people on the road and like even musicians. He'd go and play a show somewhere and then meet another band and like guys in that band surf and they're like, yeah, we always wanted to come to Jamaica, but so then he'd invite people here and then we'd have a couple rooms just in the house and you know people would come down and stay with us and then slowly it was like, okay, let's buy some tents. We put some tent spots in the yard. And then slowly, as more and more people started coming, those same tent spots, we cleared them and built the rooms right where we used to put the tents. So it's like basically the same places have been for accommodation the entire time. And then we built bathrooms and built a little bar, restaurant area. Yeah, and it's a little compound now.
that's
Have
so
a few
cool.
boards, have a few boards that we've accumulated over the years, and yeah, it's nice.
Do you have shapers there, or where are you getting the boards
No,
from?
no, we have no shapers in Jamaica. There's no shapers, no surf shop, nothing. We're like
Wow.
the only unofficial surf shops here. Whenever I travel, when I'm coming home, I always like grab wax or resin or sun cure or anything I can grab, deck pads and bring down. So we have here. There's no shapers on island. There's a Jamaican guy living in California, the same guy who taught my dad how to surf. His name is Terrence Mochette. He shapes, and he's been shaping boards since back in the 70s. Like he realized way back then that it's way cheaper to shape your own board than to buy a board.
Hmm.
So he just started making boards for himself, and now he makes boards for his son, who's doing really well. Um, and then there's another guy in Florida called Patrick Mitchell. He is Jamaican as well, but kind of the same story. Like went to college in the States and learned to surf. I think in Hawaii. I think he went to Hawaii and he learned to surf in Hawaii and started shaping boards. And yeah, um, he shaped boards for years and started. He actually sponsored me and my family for quite a while before the whole recession and the surf industry kind of went down and then like boards weren't being sold and he kind of just like he does shape boards still but like only special people would actually get his boards, but his brand was called Kwashi Surfboards. But now I get boards from a guy called Brett Prince in um, Riviera Beach, Florida. His
Oh,
boards are
that's
called
right by
Crowd
me.
Control. Yeah, his boards are called Crowd Control.
Oh, that's cool.
So every now and again, I just zip up. It's really cheap to get to Florida from here, so I just like fly up, fill a board bag, and come home. Or on my way wherever I'm going, somewhere for a contest or something, I just like stop there, fly through Fort Lauderdale, and just drive up, like spend a night, collect some boards, and then continue on with my journey. So yeah, and that's kind of where we get boards. But other than that, the accumulation of boards we had were just like from people who come to Jamaica for surfing and they'd come down with a board, surf for a couple weeks, and then leave their boards with us, and we pass it on to a kid or something. And as the kids get older, they need different boards, so they trade that one in, and we kind of trade boards with the kids. Start them with some little tiny ground boards, and as they get older, they drop those off, and then some younger groms get those, and then they get my old boards or whatever. So yeah,
That's
that's how we
awesome.
do it.
It's a good system. Like a
Yeah,
trading up kind of system. That's
yeah.
cool.
And then also the way we get them to do it is like you get a board, you keep it water tight and keep it fixed and everything, and then when it's time for you to trade up, you have to make sure you fix that board like so it's like as good condition as you can get it. So we're like, okay, you got to make sure it's clean, all the dings are patched, clean off the wax, like sand it so it's really smooth, no little sharp edges, nothing, so the next kid who's going to get it has a really nice clean board he can use and not like get scratched up from it or anything. So it's like the whole passing on. It's like almost like a ritual, I guess.
Well, that's awesome because then it becomes like the weight of a responsibility and like this, not just, oh,
Yeah,
I get it for free, but I have to
yeah.
like make
You
it.
have to take care of it and make it work for someone else. Yeah,
No, that's awesome, because then people will appreciate that more. They say that,
Yeah,
you know, if you're
yeah,
forced to take care of something, then you kind of see the value in it more than just getting it for free with no strings attached.
yep. And the way we do it too is like every time a young kid's getting older and he needs to pass on a board, a lot of the times you're like, okay, you got to teach a younger kid how to surf. Like bring
Mm,
some young, like your little brother or your cousin or someone in your community, bring them over, teach them to surf, and then we can pass that board on to them. So that's like growing the community as well, you know. So it keeps it nice.
that's a good system. I like that
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
how, when once you started getting good, what was the process like of becoming a professional surfer?
Well, we started getting good, and my dad was really a strong force in pushing for us to start traveling. So he'd, start doing competitions here until we were like, me and my brothers were the top surfers on the island. And so we were like, okay, we're the national team. So he'd seek funding for us and we'd go surfing some events in California or wherever, and then just go in there and he people would see us and like he would be like have videos and go into surf shops, just walk into a surf shop and like, hey, you want to see some waves in Jamaica, and puts in videos of us surfing, and then everyone was like, whoa, and the first shop that actually started working with me and my brothers was this surf shop called Pride Surf Shop in Ocean Beach, I think. And there's a guy that makes boards. The boards are called TDK surfboards. Um, so we got them. My dad just basically went into the shop, put the video in the video, and the guys were like, "Whoa, these kids rip!" And he's like, "Yeah, but it's hard to get boards and stuff." And they're like, "Hold on!" And just took a board bag out and just filled it with like 8 boards, and it's like, here's boards, like brand new boards. Carry them to the kids. And yeah, I think the guy's name was Brian Olson or something like that, um, from Pride Surf Shop. And yeah, so that's how like the first we were sponsored. We got in free surfboards, and then as I got older, we started like traveling to represent the country, and then the main big, the first big sponsorship I got was from Reef, because I went to the Pan American Championships in Ecuador in about 2004, I think it was, and I was surfing in the juniors, and I made it to like the semifinals or something, and like the rep for Reef for the Caribbean was there scouting, I guess, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're doing pretty well. You're Jamaica. You have a good vibe, and you surf really good and a good image. Can we talk? And then so I was with Reef for a while, and then after Reef, I mean, I'm still with Reef. I get shoes from them, but they were like giving me clothes and everything.
Hmm.
And then Insight from Australia, a company called Insight, a clothing company, they approached my family and was like, "Hey, we want to include you guys in our marketing, and like we love your message and your vibe." And so we ended up going with them for clothes. So I was with Insight for clothes and then Reef for shoes and sandals. Then I went to the Surf Expo one year and I picked up a couple more sponsors, because by that time I'd start being featured in ads for Insight and being seen in magazines, and people were like started to notice me. And um, yeah, so I picked up a few sponsors, just like walking around introducing myself to people, talking to people like, "Oh yeah, you're the Jamaican cool, like here's some stuff," throwing stuff at me, and yeah. Then for a year, I was with Billabong for a year. When they had their Bob Marley line out, it was like, you guys, it's kind of, you're promoting Bob Marley line, and you have no Jamaicans on your team, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Jeez.
so I was their Jamaican kind of like, you know like poster boy, I guess. So I was with them for a while, and then just like after you go around a while surfing and in the industry for a while, you meet certain people that are like key people in the industry, and like So then after Billabong, I was with a Jamaican company that was out of New York, but they were trying to get into surfing. And so I worked with them for a year, and then they were like, "All right, it's too difficult to break through. We're not really a surf brand. We're more of an urban brand, and it's hard for them to break through into the surf industry." And then I went with Body Glove for a while, and was with them for a couple of years, and then things kind of got really stiff for sales for Body Glove. They kind of were, the clothing side of it was doing pretty rough, and they stopped making clothes. And then now I've met CJ Hobgood a couple times, and like last year I saw him and we were hanging out in North Carolina, and he was like, yeah, like my brand is getting pretty good, and we're talking, and he was like, yeah, well, if you have nothing going for you, we could try to sort something out. So I'm kind of like sorting something out with Salty Crew at the moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's always like, but coming from Jamaica, it's always pretty difficult. Well, it was always pretty difficult for me personally, because I was the first Jamaican to pursue a career in surfing. Like it was like uncharted waters, and like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, all right, how do you become a professional surfer? I can surf pretty good, but like, what do you do? Like, what, and so it was like I was like the lab rat to just like run around and try to get it done, and then make all the mistakes, and I figure out, okay, don't do this. Like, spend a year trying to do something, and it's like, okay, that doesn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board and start again. And then now, with all my ups and downs and ins and outs and stuff, that now my younger brother and his friends, they're like, okay, I kind of like open the door and pave the way for them to like, okay, this is what you do, and they're getting a bit of more success in it than I did when I was their age, because the industry is like more open to different cultures now.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was there, it's like I was on the beach, I was the only person. Like honestly, I was like, I'd go to a surf contest, I'm like the only black surfer on the beach, which was kind of weird. And like I'd show up and I'd be like, I mean, I didn't really look at it that way. I was just like, yeah, we're all surfers and whatever. But like some people would ask me like, how does it feel to be the only black guy on the beach? And I'd look around and like, oh wait, I am the only black guy. Okay, cool. Well, whatever. I mean, personally, I don't look at color. I look at people for who they are. Because you have people who are black and people who are white and brown and Indian and Chinese and whatever, and it's how you're brought up. The experiences you go through in life and the people who teach you how to be a good person that makes you a good person. So you can have some of my best friends are white, and from all over the world. I have really good friends from all over the world, black, white, Chinese, Indian, like from all over the world, that are really good friends. And it's not because of their skin color, it's just because of their personality and how they were brought up, and their their views and their morals and stuff. That yeah. So it's nice to have different perspectives on that kind of stuff. And even though I was the only one pushing for it, it kind of opened the door now for younger kids from Jamaica and from other countries that might not fit the blonde hair, blue eye stereotype, cool surfer dude kind of look, but now they have an opportunity that people are seeing like, hey, we can market to these races and these type of people because they surf too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to identify for young kids, like say from Jamaica, where you look in a surf magazine and there's nobody in the surf industry that looks like you. Like a little dark kid or a little brown kid in Barbados or Trinidad or something, or somewhere anywhere like Guatemala or something, like a little kid there. Like, you look into all the surf videos and all the magazines, there's nobody who even looks anything like him. But nowadays it's like starting to open up, and like a few more different races are getting featured and stuff. So it's like it seems more attainable for young kids to even have a dream to pursue surfing, which is great. Sorry if I'm rambling.
No, it's good. That's the whole podcast. It's rambling. It's just talking.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
no. It's good. It's meaningful, and I think too, people from different places bring different things to surfing, because the waves are going to be different, and the culture is going to be different, and the attitude and the mindset is going to be different, and it's also all of those things come into the way that you surf. I mean, I think that free surfers or the free surfing movement of people that aren't doing the tour is kind
Yeah.
of become this more interesting realm of surfing because you have to surf different, but even guys on tour that are and girls on tour from different places, you just need a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the different perspectives and personalities and just cultures that come out in surfing, it's really cool because, as I said, it gives like variety to the sport, which is always good. But also, it shows you that, like, it makes it attainable for
Mm-hmm.
anyone. Like some kid who lives in the middle of nowhere who can run really fast has, through his school or through some sports association or something, can actually, he could be the fastest runner in the world, but he's in the middle of nowhere and has no opportunity to even venture into that path. Like, he could just be a farmer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, because like athletics has been developed so big in the world, like every country has an athletic association that's pushing and searching for the next best guy. And like, so it's the same thing surfing now. It's like these kids who are in areas that aren't so popular for surfing, like now as the industry is like opening up, it's starting to become more feasible for them to be like, hey, it's possible. I'm a really good surfer, and I could possibly do this for a few years. Maybe not make a full lifetime career out of it, but I could surf, have fun for a couple of years, enjoy my youth years traveling around, seeing different places, surfing, and then you know get back to whatever life you want to choose for the rest of your life after surfing. Because that's the thing with surfing. Your career doesn't last super long. It's like you hit 30 and you're kind of like over the hill.
But why is that? Is it because of the skill, or is it because it's a industry that's kind of like, young and sexy and like that?
Yeah, kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's a lot of surfing is like it's a young people sport, like
Mm-hmm.
high performance, like what's in the media. It's all young, flashy, big tricks, like really cool surfing. Um, as you get older, I mean, you get older, your body slows down a little bit. You're not as flexible, not as quick, and everything's like you could be surfing really good, but then the most companies I feel are like marketing to the younger people, like younger age groups, like get kids in it. We want young, fresh images of young, cool people surfing, and then once you start getting older, it's like you don't do as well because the younger kids are a lot more, they're a lot younger, so like they don't get tired as quickly, they can paddle fast for a longer distance, and like even though you could surf as good or better than them, it's like, you know, you start refining your surfing to a specific style and like, okay, this is how I surf. While the younger kids are still exploring in their surfing. So they'll surf like you and then start adding things to your style and like, going higher than you can go or whatever, doing bigger tricks because when you're young, you're fearless, you just go for whatever. And, that's when you really make big steps in your skill levels. And then once you kind of settle out and like, okay, this is how I surf, you might get better as well, but you probably don't make those big leaps in like progression. And those younger kids were always like pushing the level, pushing the limits, trying these crazy backflips and surfing these heavy crazy waves where older guys are like, hey, I got a family, I gotta look to go home to. I don't want to hurt myself. Yeah. While you're young, you're just like reckless and just like just go for whatever. And, yeah. So, I mean, that I guess that mentality, that surfing mentality, just like, yeah, surfing, just go out, have fun, get crazy waves, and just get wild in the water. And I guess that's what is marketable. I'm thinking.
Yeah,
So
I think so. I mean, I would agree with that. It is an interesting thing to think about, like 30 being like, and you're past your prime. It just seems so
yeah,
young.
yeah, but I mean, like even if you look at like athletics, most sports that you're pushing really hard for a long time, it's like football. people play college football, and once they finish college football, they might go into the pro league for like a couple of years, and then that's it. So once they're like late 20s, 30s, it's like, all right, younger kids are coming in. They're tougher. You've gotten some big hits, and your knee starts to tweak on you, and like, because of that, you kind of like, you're over the hill. You take longer to heal when you get injured, and like, you move on to something else. So I mean, it's just like any other sporting industry. It's like when you're young and agile and fit and whatever, then you get more attention and do better. And then once you start getting a little older, you could just be just as fit or even more fit than the younger kids. It's just that the image is like you want fresh young faces. It has to always be something's new because everyone likes new stuff. So if they see the same person representing for 10 years, they were like, oh yeah, who's new? What's next? There must be some young kid coming up. So that side of it too, that you're always trying to keep the people interested in the next big thing. So yeah.
So when you are working with a sponsor, you're getting free stuff, but you're also getting paid as well. Is that how it works, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's like, well, it depends on the level of sponsorship you get.
Okay.
Depending on how good you are, how popular you are, how marketable you are. Some companies will just be like, hey, we'll just give you product. Like, you're a good surfer, but you're not as recognized internationally. So we use our big funding to push the people who are like recognized bigger on the international scale. But you're a good guy in your community, in your region. You're pretty good and pretty popular, but you don't transcend to the international market that way. So um, then you'll be like, okay, everyone will get free stuff. It's just that you'll get a small budget to help you travel a little bit to possibly break through to that international market. And then once you do, then your pay grade will start going up the more popular you get. But I mean, a lot of companies just like when they started, this is like, hey, they call it a flow deal where you just get free gear. It's like, you just rep for us, like just wear our stuff and keep surfing good. And if you keep getting better, we'll keep pushing more towards you until you get paid. And then some companies, like, it depends on the brand, because some companies are looking for like growing, and like they're small and trying to get bigger. And if they see that you have the potential to possibly break through and get really big, they'll probably push you a bit more support than a big company would, because the big company already has these really huge athletes that are already repping their company, and you're just like at the bottom of the scale. Where on a smaller company, you might be the top of the scale, and they'll be like, yeah, we want to plan a trip to wherever, and you're our best guy. So even though no one really knows you, we're gonna market you because you're the best guy that surfs for us. And so it's like it's always a gamble. Like, do you go try to get with a smaller company, or try to get with a bigger company? Because the bigger company has more resources, and if you start doing well, there's a lot more. There's a lot bigger path you can go to through the big company. But the smaller company would be more appreciative of you at a lower level. So even if you're not the best surfer in the country, you'll probably get a pretty good deal from the smaller companies. It's like, it's always a gamble. But yeah, it's kind of hard.
Well, it's just interesting to hear the different dynamics, because I think from an outside perspective, as someone who's definitely not a professional surfer, definitely does not have any contracts in my future with the surfing world, but you kind of like see things that you're like, oh, did they just get free stuff and then they're just wearing it, or is it that they got paid to sponsor an ad? Or I think there's a little bit of mystery behind what you can get from what company, and also like, what does it mean to be a professional surfer, or semi-pro, or all those different things. So it's interesting to hear the insight behind all that.
When you're a full-on professional, you get paid. They have you on a salary, and so you have guys that like, okay, I get, I'm on a 50 grand a year salary, plus they cover my travel.
Okay.
So, and at the start of the year, you'd put out your calendar of like, these are all the events I want to do, all the
Mm-hmm.
competitions, all the surf photo shoots and all stuff that I want to do, and you put that into them, and then they'll also be like, yeah, well, when we have our promotional shoots that we're gonna do, and you have to be available for those, so you fit those into your calendar as well, and then they'll say, okay, you're good, and then okay, at the start of the year, it's pretty much just like book tickets and your schedule, and you know what you're gonna be doing. So like the people on the top level, like the world tour level, they know every single day of the year where they're going to be, what they're going to be doing before the year even starts. The only way things change is if, okay, I'm supposed to go to this event for 2 weeks, and they go there and they lose in the first round and they're out of the contest the first day. And they're like, okay, well, I have these 2 weeks before I'm supposed to go back to the next event that I have a leeway now. Maybe I can go home for a week and see family and then come back and start doing the whole traveling again or whatever. So, but it's always pretty hectic and pretty lonely of a life traveling all the time, unless you have friends, like, you have to like become really good friends with people or you're traveling and doing all the events with, so that like you kind of build a family kind of relationship, and you have guys you travel with together or girls or whatever, that you and them travel together to make it not so crazy. And then, but it's like, yeah, a lot of time away from family and kind of rough. Everyone says, "Oh, it's a dream. I want to be a professional." And then, like, when you get to doing that, and like, if you're really pursuing like competitive career, it's pretty rough on you. Like, you travel a lot. You don't get to see friends and family much. You're like going from country to country, like different cultures. One day you're in Spain, the next day you're in Panama, the next week you're in Australia, the next week you're in South Africa. You get to see all these cool places. But the thing is, you go to the same places every year. And the same, like, oh, I've been to France. He's like, yeah, where did you go in France? I went to Hoziger. And I surfed the contest, and then I left. Like, yeah, did you stop and see the Eiffel Tower or like go through Paris? Like, no, I flew into Paris. I took the bus straight to Hoziger, stayed there for a week, and then I straight back to the airport and flew home. And and then I left there and I went to South Africa. It's like, yeah, how's South Africa? It's like, I don't know. I just went to the beach there, just stayed on the beach for the week, and then I left and went to Brazil, and it's the same thing. So you end up going to all these cool places, and a lot of times you don't get to experience the places because you're just there for one purpose, and like you're in the mindset of, I'm here to surf, train as much as I can, get as much free surfing in. And the only time you actually get to like go around and see the place, it's like, okay, if you lose and you're knocked out of the event and you have a day or two to spare, then you're like, all right, I'm out. Let me try and go find something else to do. You know. So yeah, it kind of gets weird sometimes with that, but it's really cool to you know good experience, especially for someone who's like young and don't have as much responsibilities. So it's like you get to go around, be independent, go around, see the world as much as the world as you can see, you know, and have all of that time to like really focus on yourself and your skill level, and then it helps to build your personality and build you as a person to be like, okay, I'm pretty grounded, I know who I am, and I know what I want to do in life and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What does the projection look like after professional surfing for you?
I've already been not doing as much professional surfing.
Okay.
For a while now. I do some events, but not as many because it kind of it's kind of expensive. It's pretty expensive to surf, and if you're not like getting a lot of travel budget and a lot like a big salary or something, it's really hard to maintain a career in surfing. Because if you think of it, a surfboard costs like $400 or $500, and when you travel, you have to pay for your boards like $100, 200 round each way, hotels, ground transport, and if you're doing like one event to the next, to the next, to the next, you're gonna dig a hole in your pocket so bad you won't be able to recover. So yeah, I haven't been doing as many events recently. I still do a few, but um, I've been doing a bit of music. I play in a band. Me and my brothers have a little band we play in, and also play and tour with a band called Micah, and the Dreadites.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I've been to Europe a couple times, did a bunch of shows all over the place, a couple of festivals and stuff. Um, and then my family here at our home, we run this surf school, surf camp. I do that. I also run some surf schools in different countries. Like in the summertime, I usually head to North Carolina and work with WB Surf Camp, and I put on like an advanced camp for a month, and just I get like the top up and coming kids in that area just come in, and I coach them and work on their skills and stuff. Um, and then I also like some winters I go down to Tortola in the Virgin Islands, and me and some friends kind of do a thing down there, a surf school tour, island touring kind of thing. So yeah, I've kind of like reached my hands out, and more family we're venturing into a few other projects that we're looking into, and yeah, just keeping busy.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I had the interview with your wife, I remember her talking about there's a studio in the surf camp too, right? There's like a recording
Yeah,
studio.
yeah.
That's cool. Are you like leasing that to people, or it's just like for fun, or what are you doing with that?
Um, we kind of slowly were building it. Um, my dad just finished an album that we recorded it here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, it's kind of just like friends will come in. Like it's not like open to the public really. It's just like, oh
Okay.
yeah, we have a friend who lives down the street. He wants to record a song. He'll come in and be like, hey, I'll give something towards electricity. And he was like, all right, cool, And we help him, and we have our jam session we usually have our jam session every other Saturday night before this whole Corona lockdown.
Yeah.
So like we'd have young up and coming artists who just like need a avenue to express themselves, and they'd come here, and they've never performed before, never recorded any music, and we like give them a stage and be like, hey, perform. You got 15 minutes, do the best you can. And then out of that, like if someone's really good and we're like, yeah, this guy has potential, then we'll be like, hey, come over one day, let's try and record that song, so you can actually have something to like push when you're trying to venture into your musical career. um, yeah. But recently we've just been using it for a lot of family projects as well. Like as I said, we just finished his album. The band I play in, Micah, our band, we recorded a few songs there too, and we're releasing a new album. It should be dropping. Well, we're supposed to be dropping like next week, but I don't know, with this whole Corona thing and everything slowing down, we're kind of holding on and like sorting a few other stuff out before we release it. So that's going to be coming out soon. It's going to be an album called Bush Tea.
Bush tea.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's a
cool.
Jamaican thing. It's a Jamaican thing because like Jamaicans, they rely heavily on nature. For
Okay.
like, oh, if you have a flu, you go and pick that bush, make tea with it. If you have a
Oh yeah.
headache, that bush, and then if you have like high blood pressure, you make tea with that bush, and like so like bush tea is a Jamaican thing. So it's kind of like all the songs on that album. It's kind of like inspirational and like really talking to the times that we're going through right now. Like like yeah, all this craziness that's going on and stuff, and like try to like open people's eyes to like this is how you should be living your life. Don't
Mhm.
don't squander your life and your money away just on what's hip and what's cool. Like be conscious, stay righteous and everything. And that's kind of where that album is going. And then also, as I said, we have a couple other friends that did some recording there and working on some songs with them, and we kind of like help to direct their creativity to like add some flair to it, so it's not so monotonous, I guess. So yeah, that little studio project is cool, and it's called On the Veranda because it's on our veranda. So yeah.
That's awesome. Are you guys still locked down there, or what's it like?
Um,
Or did you guys ever
well,
lock down?
our area here was never really fully locked down. Like the
Okay.
first person that had the virus in Jamaica, the first person who brought it in was a lady who she came down for a funeral and she was staying like a mile from us, like
Oh wow.
literally like 2 minutes drive up the street. So that they quarantined the entire community, and but like not that many people got it from her, I guess. But I mean, we're on the beach, so like even though they're like, oh yeah, the lockdown, there's a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. or whatever, but we live on the beach, so like when they're having the curfew, you can't go on the streets, we go surfing. So like for us, it's still pretty chill. And Jamaica has been pretty on point, I guess, with like putting the word out for people to keep clean, wash hands, wash your face, like try not to like if you're feeling sick, stay away from the public, stay home, whatever. And also like social distancing, only allowing a certain amount of people into like companies and buildings at the same time and all of that stuff. And it seems like it's been going pretty good. We haven't had much big breakouts or anything. I mean, in total, I think since this whole thing started, I think there's like 500 people, around about 500 people that actually got infected,
Mm-hmm.
and like about 200 of them already recovered. So it's like we're doing pretty good, and like we haven't really had that. Like I don't know if we have many deaths. I think it might have been like only like a one or two or something like that died, and it would have been like people who had other underlying like conditions that they couldn't, like their body couldn't fight it. Because as I said, Jamaicans, we use bush tea to get over stuff.
No, but that's good. I mean, that's like, I do think that people are starting to realize that, at least people in my circle,
Hmm.
that kind of some more natural things are the way to go. Like, I've kind of had a lot of people closer to me, um, being like, how can I boost my immune system? How can I,
Yeah,
echinacea tea and different types of, herbs and stuff like that. And
yeah.
um, New Zealand was a lot like that too, though. We had a couple plants when I lived there. We had a couple plants. I had a roommate who would show me, oh, like this one, like, oh, you're hungover, like
Yeah,
grab
drink
this.
this one. Yeah,
Yeah, drink this one, or you need to chill and drink
yeah.
that one. And uh, I remember the. Do you guys have kawa there? Do you know what kawa is?
No.
It's
I
like
mean, maybe we have
you
something like
probably
that, but we
have it.
probably call it something else.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's like it it really mellows you out like in a very extreme way. You're not like
Yeah.
it's not like a buzz or anything, but it just makes you really calm. And the best leaves that have the most medicine are the ones that the caterpillars have eaten. So that you take the ones
Okay.
that have already been like eaten by the caterpillars, and that's what you put in your tea.
Yeah. Okay. All
Because
right.
they know where the medicine is.
Yeah. Yeah. They go for the good stuff.
Yeah, they can sense it out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But
But I know.
um
I mean, like we here, as I said, we rely heavily on nature. Like when when the virus first came into the country, you know, and like anyone who's like, oh, you wake up and you have a runny nose, it's like, okay, garlic, turmeric, and ginger. Put those together, boil it, make a tea. Put a little honey and drink that, and like you drink that, and by the next morning you're fine. Or even later the same day, you're like, okay, I'm over, my nose stopped running, and it's like, yeah, that's kind of what we've been using here: garlic, turmeric, and ginger. And every now and again, we sprinkle a little cayenne pepper into it to like boost it up, and that worked. Like you wake up and you feel a little bit stuffy or whatever, you drink that, and in like an hour or two, you're like, yeah, back to normal. That's like a big immune booster for us here. That little mixture, and yeah, it's been a lot of people and have been doing stuff like that and like not getting sick, or even if they just feel sick, maybe they don't actually have the coronavirus or whatever, but they just like feel a little runny nose or a little cough or whatever. They find something like that, make some teas or something, and get over whatever they're going through. And yeah, it's the Jamaican way.
That's a good
Natural.
way. I like it.
Yeah.
I like bush tea. I just think that's
Yeah.
awesome. Name for it.
Yep. Bush tea.
So I have 3 last questions for you. The first one is, what is the weirdest wave that you've ever surfed?
Okay. Let me see. I have to think about that. Weirdest wave. Surf some pretty weird waves. I don't know.
You can just pick one.
Yeah, but I'm trying to pick one that's like really interesting.
Really weird?
Yeah. I mean, I've surfed some really good waves, like really, really good waves. Like world class waves. But as far as weird waves go, probably. I don't know. Probably right behind my house here.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when we have hurricanes, the whole beach, the coastline gets changed up, and a lot of sand gets pushed in over the reef, like over the reef and onto the little lagoon inside of the reef, and then the waves will come in, and like a wave will come in, it would be like about 1 foot, and you catch it, and you're like you stand up and you're trying to ride a shortboard, and it's like just barely crumbling, and you're on your shortboard bouncing, and then it gets to where the sand builds up, and the wave will just jack up to like maybe shoulder behind this barrel, and you get a barrel, and then you get out, and it just drops back to 1 foot again.
Wow.
so that's probably one of the weirdest ones. Like after a hurricane, and it's always like a novelty thing here. Like after a hurricane, when the whole little sand gets moved around, it just sets up perfectly. We go out and we surf back here, catch a little wave, bounce, and just get barrel and come out, and like you bounce a few more times, and the wave just dies. That's probably one of the weirdest. Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah,
What
kind of.
was your what is your biggest oh shit moment while surfing? So like gnarly wipeout or weird hold down or something.
I've had some pretty crazy ones. Um, there's two where I felt like I was getting close to drowning. One, the first one, and probably the worst one, was in Bali in about 2008 or 2009. Um, I was surfing this beach. I don't remember. I think it's like Chuchukan or something. It's a long point break that the waves fire like right down the point, and then the point kind of cuts in, and it kind of swings in around into a bay, and like the current's really strong down the point, and I surfed a wave like a whiz, went way up the top of the point, and I got barreled all the way down, and I came out right before the last section, and like I bailed off my board, and my leash got wrapped around a rock, and like my board was on one side of the rock, and I was on the other, and the current coming down the point was so strong, I was underwater, and my leg was on the leash, and like it felt like I was being pulled behind a boat. Like the current was pushing down so hard I couldn't lean forward to to hold on to pull my leash off my leg. And I was underwater. I was like about 3 feet underwater. I'm seeing the top of the water right there, and I can't get to the top, and I can't get to pull my leash. And yeah, that was one of those oh shit moments. Luckily, every time a wave would come and like suck up, because it was like right on a big heavy section, when waves suck up, the water level would come down. I could just barely get my face out and catch a breath. And then the wave would just crash on me and push me down, and then I get shook around, and then the current's strong, and I can't. And then the next wave comes, and I push my face up and catch a breath, and then after a couple of minutes, like I felt like okay, this is it. Like I can probably do one more hold down. And when I took a breath, I kind of waved my hand out, and my brother was paddling back up, and he saw my hand, and he paddled around, and like he went way up the point and jumped off, and he was diving down, drifting down. He dove off and like held on to me and pulled the leash off my leg, and I got free. So that was one of those moments where I was like, oh shit, I could die here. Um, Other than that, hurricane surf maybe out here. Um, this one wave I surfed the wave, I dropped in, pulled in the barrel, like a huge one. I don't know how big. Didn't have video of the wave, but I pulled in the barrel and got it closed out, and I went over the falls twice. Actually, I fell and I went over, and then it sucked me over again and pushed me all the way down to the bottom, and I was like lying on my back on the sand, looking up, and the wave passed, and I'm like, okay, and the water's like the current's weird, and the water's like pressing me down on the ground, and another wave passed, and I was like, all right, I'm starting to run out of breath now, like wave, you could ease up and let me move, and then the third wave was passing, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna die, and like I managed to like fight my way up to like roll onto my side and like swim sideways because the water was like pushing down here, so I managed to swim like sideways and like come up, and as I was coming up, the next wave was passing. I just managed to barely get my face out the top of the wave and catch a breath before it threw me over the falls again. And if I didn't catch that breath, if I went down without catching that breath for another 10, 15 seconds, I probably would have been drinking water. So yeah, those are probably the two worst moments in surfing.
It's so heavy.
Yeah. Well, when you start pushing yourself into crazier ways, it gets crazy sometimes. So you have to. That's one thing I always tell people, like when we're teaching them how to surf. Like if you stand on a beach and you have any second thought that I might not be able, don't go out. Just like don't even test it, because you might try to go out, and you just in trying to get out, you get in a situation where you're getting pounded, and after 2-3 waves, and you can't catch your breath, and then that's when you get hurt. Like if you're not fit enough to manage getting hit by the biggest wave 10 times in a row, So that's what I always tell people. Like, when in doubt, don't go out.
Yeah, that's good too. And also, like, I think some of it is mindset too. So, like, I was told in New Zealand that the way that you enter the water is the way that you leave the water. So, like, if you enter with some, like, and you're scared or your mindset's crazy, you're going to leave with that same mindset or worse. So if you're looking at the waves and you're like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I say. If you're like, whoa, I don't know, just like, don't go. Just
don't go,
chill on the beach. If you're on the beach and you look at it, you're like, oh, that looks sick, I want to get out there, then obviously you can handle it. So, like, go for it, So, yeah. Safety, man.
Safety
don't want to be a casualty or, a statistic on like, yeah, I've had to save a few people before, quite a few times in surfing, that it's not fun, when things go bad and you're like, oh no, like this person could drown. Like you have to then put yourself in a really bad situation helping others,
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we've never had anything. I mean, we've had one drowning here, but that was like a freak, weird thing. The waves were small, and he pulled in a barrel and fell and hit his head on the reef and went unconscious. So, and but the other times that we actually were like out there, kind of when the waves were big and crazy, like we've had to help out a bunch of people. Boards, leash broke, and out there getting pounded at like swimming, get them on our boards, carry them in, stuff like that. And it's good to know that you helped save a life, and like, and also to know that like people, when you're surfing with friends or whatever, that they've got your back as well. That in that situation, because you never know, you're surfing, it's the ocean, anything can happen, and you just have to always make sure that if you're going out and the waves are kind of like big and crazy, never go out alone. No matter how confident you are, always be sure to have someone keeping an eye on you, or yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
My last question for you is, what's next for you?
Next. Well, I'm probably gonna go surf today.
That sounds good.
Right now, we're working on a few. As I say, my family, we're working on a few projects. As far as the music stuff is going on, that's kind of slowed down with this whole Corona thing, because like touring and stuff isn't gonna be happening anytime soon. This summer, depending on how this whole Corona thing goes, I might be doing a bit of traveling and running a few surf camps. training for the World Championships when it happens to try and qualify for the Olympics. And yeah. I don't know. Cleaning the house. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and I mean, as I said, my family were venturing into a few projects that were slowly like getting everything in order, so that's been taking a bit of focus to try and get that done. Um, and we're starting a live music kind of interview, live music session thing every Thursday evening at 6 p.m., which is today, 6 p.m.
Oh, awesome.
We're going to be interviewing like established Jamaican artists and up and coming reggae artists. And just like a little 20-minute feature, a little bit of talk about what they're doing with their careers, and then maybe if it's like more established artists, like advice they can give to young and upcoming guys and stuff, and then like just perform a couple songs, and then that's it, like little 20-minute thing. And we're gonna be streaming that on our the Instagram for our camp here. It's Jamnesia Surf. Yeah, so that's gonna be this afternoon, and we're gonna do that every Thursday.
That's awesome.
Because, as I said, we used to do our jam sessions here every other Saturday night, and since this whole Corona thing, it's like that music presence in Jamaica is gone. There's no events for musicians or nothing. So like, we're trying to start to like, okay, all the people who would normally come and perform, we're going to start featuring them and like little 10-minute interview, and they perform a couple songs and tell their story and keep the audience interested in music, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's a good plan. It's a good what's next. It's lots of exciting stuff.
Yeah. And it's always life changes, so you just take it as it comes. You make plans, and sometimes those plans change like overnight, like you have this plan and you're working on this, and then something happens like, oh yeah, this new opportunity comes, and then this new opportunity leads to another 10 years of something. So you never know. It's just always work in progress, and it's nice to always have a vision of something you're working towards, but it's also nice to keep your mind open to other opportunities. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening that we're working towards, but then we never know, if something else comes up that seems feasible, run for it,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. This was so awesome.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Nice talking to you.
Let us know when you guys are in Florida. We actually just moved down here, so.
Yeah. Where in Florida are you guys?
Lake Worth. It's right by Riviera Beach.
Oh, Lake Worth. Yeah. I have a Kwashi who makes the boards, a Jamaican shaper. He used to live in Lake Worth. Well, I think he still does, but he lives a little closer inland now, not so much on the coast. But he lives in Lake Worth. So whenever we're there, we usually swing by Lake Worth for like a day or two just to hang with him and his kids. So, yeah, might be seeing you around.
Cool. That sounds good. Yeah, right. We're getting the lay of the land here. The waves are good.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's Florida.
For my standards, it's good for us.
Yeah. So. It's Florida. It's usually pretty small.
Yeah, it's true.
But it gets good sometimes.
I'm good with the small waves. We came from surfing the lakes, so.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm guessing.
Better.
That's better.
Yeah, it's better. I mean, you have more time. Mm-hmm. On the lakes, you have like 3-second periods or something, like it's like so fast moving, where here you can just kind of like, I went out the other day and it was like 11-second periods, and I was like, whoa.
Yep. Talking about weird waves, and that when you're saying about 3-second period, when I was in Tortola not last year, like January or February or March, I don't remember. And there was this guy, he's from Canada. Mm-hmm. And he surfs in a mall.
In a mall?
Yeah. Apparently there's this wave thing that produces waves in a mall, and it's just like you surf. It's like a little pool, and it generates waves. And I don't know. He was explaining it, and it was like the period of the waves are like 2 seconds, and it's like it creates like 6 or so waves. And he's like, yeah, you surf without a leash. If you catch a wave and you fall, you stay underwater until all the waves pass, because the next waves are right behind you, and if someone's on the wave, they're gonna run into you. So as soon as you fall, you stay underwater, hold your breath for 10 seconds until it passes, and everyone surfs over your head, and then you come up. So I mean, that would be a pretty cool wave to ride, to test. You know, that would have been a weird wave. Maybe one of these days when if I make it to Canada anytime soon, because I'm half Canadian. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So. I need to visit family up there, so I mean that could be something to at least I could say I surf in Canada, and not in like Tofino ice water Canada, like in a mall where it's climate controlled, warm.
Yeah, that's the only warm waves I think you're gonna find in all of Canada.
Yeah, so
it's all pretty cold.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, this was awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah.
And that was episode 46. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please check out Icah's and his family's surf camp. It's called Jamnesia. It looks just totally awesome. And the other fun fact is that Icah keeps talking about his dad in the interview going on tour. He is a pretty famous musician. His name is Billy Mystic. I highly recommend looking up his music. I was listening to it today while we were cleaning the house. Very highly recommend. So yeah, I hope you guys love this episode. We'll see you next Monday with another new one.